Good evening, everybody. How we doing out there? We doing good? All right, so I'm excited tonight. This is my first introduction as an assistant principal here in Weston, so I hope I don't butcher it too badly. But there's no better group to introduce than the band. I was a band kid myself, all the way starting in 3rd grade and up through high school. If you're wondering, I played the tuba, and I think I was not all district. Apparently Mr. Oates was, who also played the tuba, so there's a fact about both of us. But we're going to start off a jazz band. I'm excited about that. 6, 7, 8. I am mostly here to introduce our wonderful director, who has won, I think, just every award that's possible, ever. Chris Mellon.
Good evening. First of all, how lucky are we to have Brian, Buck, and Phil Oates? Can we just give them a huge round of applause? They are incredible. We depend on them every day, and they really are incredibly supportive administrators. My job tonight is to thank everybody who made this possible. First of all, our incredible faculty. As you know, Claire Naldon is out on maternity leave. She's going to be back in a couple weeks. Her new son, Jay, is fantastic. We're getting tons of pictures, so she's having a wonderful time. But we got so lucky with Angeleah, Madore, so let's give her a round of applause. She has really kept the train moving along with Lisa Nardone. The middle school band's sound is great as ever. They've been rehearsing here the last couple days, and I'm telling you, you're in for a treat tonight. I'd also like to thank WeSee. WeSee has been absolutely incredible to the music program. So much of what we do, we could not do without WeSee. Let's give WeSee and all the WeSee owners a huge round of applause. The Weston Friends of Music helped organize this concert tonight, including the reception afterwards and the programs. So I'd like to give a big thank you to Anna Berger, our Weston Friends of Music president, and then Lori Glazier, our band liaison. Let's give them a huge round of applause. With regards to the reception, pro tip, parents, you can go out the doors and then back to the front. Sometimes that's faster than walking the hallway. Students, you're going to walk to the reception afterwards. And then lastly, I'd like to thank the Weston Media. Weston Media comes to every single one of our concerts, and let me tell you, we've had a string of them the last few weeks. So thank you, Weston Media, for putting all these concerts online for us. All right, we're going to start with the Middle School Jazz Band.
what you just heard was called Paper Moon, with solos, 2 trumpet solos actually, one from Thomas, and then the other one from Robbie. All right, the next tune that you're gonna hear is called Curacao Blue. Hope you enjoy it. thank you everyone. Once again, that was Curacao Blue with a trumpet solo from Leo, a bari sax solo from Nico, a trombone solo from Adrian, and a tenor sax solo from Colby. All right, before we hand it over to 6th grade, we have one last tune for you today. And this one's a fun one. It's called Uptown Funk. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much for your patience. That is, I promise, our one and only big set change for the rest of this performance. I'm Lisa Nardone, and I teach 4th through 7th grade band here in Weston. It's my pleasure to have taught this group now for 3 years, which is very exciting. We've really seen them grow a lot from 4th grade until now. We have 3 songs for you tonight. I'm conducting the first 2. We have Starfire Band here, where we learn how to play in 2. So our song is in 6/8, and we learn how to take that in 2. And our second is called the American Spirit March. It's just a fun, short march that we really worked on dynamics in this group for that song. And then I will turn the baton over to Madore for our last song, which is called Lupa, which they voted, each of our groups, our 6th and our 7th, I believe 8th too, we let them search the J.W. Pepper catalog, and they helped us choose our fun piece for each group. So please enjoy the 6th grade band. Before my last piece with this group, I just wanted to say how it's always, this concert is always bittersweet for me because this is my final year with this group, and they have been such a pleasure to teach for the last 4 years. I'm not going anywhere, but they are moving up to 8th grade. So I just want to let them know I will still be around and I will still see you. And I've really, really enjoyed watching you grow musically and just as individuals who've just been really great to teach. And thank you all for giving me the opportunity to teach them. So the song that I'm going to be conducting next is called Darklands March.
Thank you. I'm Isabel.
And I'm Ava.
And we would like to give a special thank you to Miss Nardone.
You were always so kind and patient, especially when we were annoying, which happens a lot. And you always helped us with our songs when things got tough.
On behalf of the 7th grade band, we would like to thank you for all of your hard work and for making this last concert with the 7th grade band so special.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm Cleo. And we just want to give a very special thank you to Miss Madore. She's helped us all so much on behalf on all of the bands. We just want to give a huge thank you because I know sometimes our band can be a little annoying, but you deal with it so amazing. And we hope that next year maybe you'll come and visit us.
So I'm just giving a shout out to her. We miss her so much, and we hope she's having a nice break from our band. But we're so excited to see her, and we just wanted to shout out for her. And Miss Madore, you've been amazing to us, and we're so glad to have you.
Yeah.